So, John, I was thinking for today's episode, we can talk about delightful design. And this is a word that we hear a lot in the design community. Let's talk about like what it means, how do we apply it, and things like that.
Yeah, this is a great topic. Every time I hear that term, like delightful design, I always think of my favorite UX quote from Alan Cooper. If we want users to like our software, we should design it to behave like a likable person.
Yeah.
And and it's a huge quote because it's the best way to really design things. Think about what you're designing as being a personality, and like a personality that you like preferably like, and a personality that excites you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dennis excites me as a personality. So design your applications to be like Dennis or whoever you can picture as that person who seems like we have an emotional connection.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite quotes, and that's a quote that I use all the time. I've had it up on my portfolio. I've used it in presentations. I talk about it at work a lot during our show and tells and deep dives at LinkedIn. To me, delightful design is exceeding expectations, right? When it comes to the things that we're designing, we should design maybe, based on expectations, but exceeding those expectations when a user is going through a flow or a specific task or job that they're trying to accomplish, that's truly delightful design.
Yeah.
That's truly when it's just so good. It's almost like you can think about it as an element of surprise almost. Yeah. And it's just like doing something that's supposed to be good, just really, really good.
Yeah, and it's the thing that I feel like is lacking right now in the industry. It's something that you saw a whole lot of when the iPhone first came out, and years following when all these cool apps are coming out and just different things that was exciting you. But I don't know if it's a matter of the fact that like we as tech users are becoming jaded. But even if that's true, you just have to outpace that, that nature. You don't see a lot of things these days, and UX, at least I don't, that like excite you a whole lot. At least like it used to. But I think that gives us an opportunity to to do better, to just do those things that just are going to stand out and just make you say, wow, this is like really speaking to me. Because at the same time, there are also a crap ton of crappy experiences across the board. I'd say I'm not really thrilled about at least, over 75% of the experiences I have, on my phone and in other devices, so there's always plenty of opportunity for this. And one thing that I like to do to get into this mind state is to take time to think when I'm working on a new project. Like, whatever your goal is, just like, okay, what's the underlying thing I'm trying to create? What feeling am I trying to create? And that second part is the type of thing that people just don't tie into a whole lot. Like, what emotion am I trying to create? What do I want people to feel as they're using this? So, like, if you are not in tune with that sort of thing, if that, I guess that emotional, like, connection isn't your cup of tea, try to, like, think of apps that make you feel, like, happy. Like, happy experiences that you've had. Like, one that I recently had, I just got the iPhone 10. And the one thing that made me really happy was the Face ID enrollment, screen, the onboarding screen for that. Like something about it, like, just the effects. It used like a really old school, like spy movie type of vibe to it when you're like, moving your head around to register it. The effect was just like really, I don't know, something about it just really made me smile and made me happy. And so I just had a lot of fun doing that, an onboarding experience for Face ID. And I the one resounding memory I have of like setting up my iPhone was just that one screen. They did a really great job with like just creating an emotion of excitement for something that I wasn't particularly super excited about coming into. I was very like on the fence about Face ID and like, and how it would work and like, just security issues and all of that. But it really made me feel great about it momentarily, I guess beyond momentarily. So I can tell they really thought that out all the way down to the graphics. And speaking of the graphics, there's no harm in actually doing some like cheesy visual pizzazz in situations that, it doesn't really hurt the experience. And by cheesy visual pizzazz, I mean like, that 3D effect they used. I think they did a similar thing in Touch ID. Siri does this all the time where it has all these like really like, cool like little can't think of the visual
like
term for that
waves.
particular style of effect, but no less, it's just very ambient feeling.
Like sound waves and the colors.
Yeah, and it seems like overkill sometimes in certain spots, but it makes you feel good.
Yeah, I think So there's a couple of things. I think emotional design is very connected to delightful design. I think the element, as I mentioned, of surprise and emotion, capturing emotions in some sort of way, also attached to what I mentioned earlier about like, just going beyond those expectations that a user has when they're interacting with the designs that we created or the product that we created. I think those are all like super important, right? The emotion aspect of it. And this is something like Don Norman talks about a lot. I know he's one of our favorite. I had like a really surreal moment when I met him one time at Autodesk.
We told that story actually in one of our episodes of Friends Who Design way back. Oh, yeah. It was a great one.
I love that moment. And but yeah, I think there's a lot of connection with delight and emotion. I will kind of argue that delightful design to me isn't necessarily like animation and like cute illustrations and things like that. For example, like 404 pages that are funny. I don't really consider that delightful design. Those are nice, like mini delights maybe, but it's not truly a delightful design in that sense. Because what I don't want to see, and I kind of see this a lot already, are like a lot of illustrations and like cute, like icons and things like that. Yeah. I don't really consider those delightful designs as much as like really well done visual designs or UI designs. So there is that borderline for me a little bit. But
I'm thinking it's like things that just give you a connection with the interface, things that literally just make you happy. Like, this just like, is really pulling me in. Traditional difference that I've seen, like, throughout time that separates Apple from other, companies in terms of just putting those tiny things in there every now and then that just creates that added, and it could be, it doesn't have to be like something like, animations or things of that sort. It can be tiny things, it doesn't have to be anything weird. The next thing I was thinking of was sound design, but you don't even have to go that far. But sound design is a great example of something that creates delight in design, especially for me. I don't always keep my phone on, but, when I do, tiny things like, you're buying something or downloading something on the App Store and you hear like a little as you're like, that just like makes it, plays that all in, or you're using like, Apple Pay or, or Google Pay or anything, things of that sort, it's just the details. It's all in the details for me personally, but it could be different for different people. You know, sometimes just a really fast interface, that does exactly what it's supposed to do. And just get straight to the point. That could be the delight that people, require. It's almost like the quote that you were telling me the other day about feeling so much more productive on Android this past week. Dennis made a switch to, he's always used Android as I do as a secondary device, but he's using Android as his primary, super primary. I'm not sure if he even possesses an iPhone anymore. Primary,
it's in my back pocket.
And he's been like raving about how much more productive he feels and that on his phone. And, that's in a sense a delightful experience.
I think you said it, like the aha moment, like that element of surprise. And like it doesn't have to be like UI or some sort of like software that does it. And I'll give you a good example. And I haven't been talking too well about Apple recently because like, I've had my problems with their operating system. I also don't think, they're top notch. Ooh. But I will say one of the last times that I can remember that I had a delightful moment was with an Apple product, which are the AirPods. So long story short, I was listening to music at work. It was like, the first week with the AirPods on. Someone comes to me and starts talking to me and asks me a question. I pull one AirPod out of my ear. I answer the question. That person leaves. I put it back in my ear. I hit play and the music picks up where I left off. That for me is delightful design. Like that brought so much joy to my day. And I think that's a great example of, at least for me, it wasn't a product or it wasn't a UI that I was interacting with, but it was actually like just a beautiful moment.
Interface, just not on a digital sense.
So, that element of surprise is so great.
Microwave situation, Dennis put Breville on the forefront for me, and I got a Breville microwave, and like I just love everything about this microwave. It's just like it just thinks for me. It defaults to 30 seconds, and I just hit tap and play, and it has all these presets that it's just on point, and like it's just unexpected for a microwave.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, nothing, no microwave should be this good. I haven't, so like I totally know. And by the way, to do this,
and I think that's a great point you just mentioned. Like, your expectations were something, right?
Yeah.
And then they like went beyond those expectations, and you had that delightful moment.
Yeah. And I
awesome.
feel bad if I didn't touch on how I do this myself when I'm trying to create this emotion. I do journey mapping a whole lot.
Yeah.
And basically, what I do when I'm journey mapping is I just like literally like hit every single point that may follow along the, user's journey and get, and interacting with the product that I'm working on. Like stage one, they, open up the app, they look at this, they look at that, and try to, in every single point, log what their emotion is or might be. I literally will log a ton of different things, feelings that they could have, and I typically validate this through user testing. And basically, in every single point, you try to log out and take out what emotion they're having and what emotion you want them to have, and constantly like tune your app to try to get it to exactly where you want to be via journey mapping. Basically, just knowing what people are thinking at every single point of using your app and every single button they press. And that will help you to just do like a mental logging of what you're trying to accomplish and actually pull it off. It's a major step in actually pulling that and doing that. And so you can integrate that into your prototyping as well. Basically, at every point you say, okay, what are you feeling right now? What emotion are you feeling? Not like, the typical heuristic thing where you're like, oh, are you able to figure this out type of thing, but also like, just what are you feeling? Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference because those are the intangibles that make an interface have like lasting power, and build allegiances to what you have done. So, that's the major step in actually pulling this off.
Yeah. I agree. Journey mapping is a great tool for that, especially when you're trying to find those main key points and those elements. Another great tool that you can use is called the Kano Model, which is a great way to determine customer satisfaction. So look up the Kano Model. I won't talk too much about it because it's like we can spend like another episode on that. But journey mapping and the Kano Model, start there, and that will take you super far. So that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with John and I, visit angelacamachogroup.com. We can also help you bring lots of delight to the designs in your products and services. So please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thanks for listening. Cheers.